Hello, my name is Paul McKenna and I'm a teacher in Japan. I'm going to show you a way to give written feedback to a group of students. This is an alternative to giving individual feedback, which can be very, very time consuming. And in my experience, sometimes students don't implement the feedback you give them, or when they change things, they create new mistakes. It's not an effective use of your time. The approach I'm going to take here is we will write a new example of a piece of writing which will incorporate many of the mistakes that the students have made. So basically you review them and you look out for, oh, this mistake comes up a lot, or somebody did this. It doesn't even have to come up a lot. You can just choose a mistake, an interesting mistake that that might be a common mistake, but might not necessarily be common in that particular group at that particular time. You write up an example including these mistakes. You do a version 1, version 2, and a version 3, and you write comments. So you take them through a process of correcting a piece where at each stage you show them the process. Often a student will write something and some of the problems are just like spelling and grammar errors or punctuation, things like that. But oftentimes it's a case of them including stuff that's not interesting, or they're not expanding a topic, or very common you get a case where people are just jumping around topics. Okay, so they go to talk about music, and then they'll talk a little bit about the sports they do, and then they'll go back to the topic of music, and then they'll go back to the topic of sports. So it's not organized. So the way to tackle this, or the way that I do and that I'm going to show you now, step 1 is where you fix very obvious mistakes quickly. You remove stuff that's not necessary, and then you organize the topics. And then step 2 is you see what you've left, and we will comment on that a bit more. And then step 3 is where you take whatever's left and you expand upon it. I'm going to use Google Docs. Google Docs is useful because number 1, you can share it with students, and number 2, you can write comments on it. And these comments will just take students through the process, through the 3 steps of how you actually improve the piece of writing. So I'm going to show that to you now. Okay, so this is an exercise where you ask students to write a self-introduction. Commonly what you find with this is just each new sentence, they'll write a new line. So it's not written in paragraphs. So let's just read through it. Hello, my name is Kenny Kentama. I'm 21 years old. I'm from Tokyo. I live in Tokyo now. My birthday is October 21st. Next, I will tell you about my hobbies. I like eating fruits. Fruits are delicious. Eating fruits makes me happy. I have many hobbies. I like arashi and radwimps. They're, if you're not familiar with the Japanese J-pop, they're bands, I believe. I like manga. I study CG now. Thank you. So a number of things. Number 1 is just the shape, it's not in paragraphs. And number 2 is they've included stuff like a greeting and thank you, and next I will tell you about. In each case here, in Google Docs, you can write comments. So I selected that text here and I just have a comment. This is Japanese, it means aisatsu, which is a greeting. This is a piece of writing, not a presentation, so you don't need this. I have a comment here. So I'm from Tokyo. I live in Tokyo now. We can combine this into one topic. Students will often write their birthday. I don't say it's wrong, but is it really interesting? You know, it's just they learn that sentence pattern in high school or junior high school or whatever, and they often include it. Hobbies, the way we use hobbies in English, and Japanese people learn that a word shumi means hobbies. If you teach in Japan, you know this. I don't need to say more. You can actually link to an explanation in Japanese, which explains how hobby is used in English. So you can do that. You can hyperlink off to points where you explain things in Japanese. You'll often get things like this where people just say the same thing. I like eating fruits. Fruits are delicious. Eating fruits makes me happy. Lots of different ways of saying fruits are good. These sentences all contain the same point. It's a question of style. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that it can sound childish sometimes. Often you'll find students in Japanese writing names, titles and things like that in all caps. I wrote a little comment here. These sentences are grammatical, but they are too short. The sentences are not organized into paragraph. Actually, it looks more like a list. It is not very interesting to read because it's too simple and too vague. It also feels more like speaking than writing. Let's start by removing the unnecessary or weak points and organizing the ideas. If there are any words like vague, that might be a difficult word. You could put a comment there and add the Japanese, or you could have a link. You could link off to a dictionary definition or something like that. Okay, next, version 2. So what I've done is I've basically removed stuff and done a little bit of recombination and a little bit of organization. My name is Kenny Kentama. I'm 21 years old. I'm from Tokyo and I live there now. So using a pronoun. And my comment is here, the unnecessary or weak points have been removed. Also, the ideas are organized into 2 sections, personal details and favorite things, not hobbies. Again, I link off to explain what that means. However, there's now not enough. These topics need to be expanded and include more details. And again, I've written little comments here about this sentence. The topic is personal detail. If I were Tokyo, I say Tokyo, this is too vague. There's the Japanese word. So it's not very interesting. Be more precise and say something interesting about it. Okay, so version 2 is where I remove the unnecessary. Okay, and then version 3 is where I expand. So my name is Kenny Kantama and I'm 21 years old. Just combine the sentences. I've always lived in Tokyo in Shimokitazawa. I love it here because there are nice cafes and cool fashion. A lot of interesting people live here. You can also write little comments to, you know, nice is a boring adjective. How about funky or chic would be a better word? Interesting people, you could give examples here. And I've written notes here. For example, the topic of this paragraph is music. So I've expanded the music, okay? My favorite band is Arashi. I have all their CDs. I've seen them in concert 5 times. I also like Radwimps. I was going to see them in concert last week because it was cancelled. Seeing a band live is the best way to enjoy music. I wrote a little comment here saying that a concluding idea for this paragraph. English paragraphs and essays often finish with a comment or the writer's thoughts on the topic. Again, at the end, I just wrote a comment. Here's a better version. The topic where I live is more specific and expanded. Some of the details are images, which are more interesting to read. Images are more interesting and they're more persuasive, okay? And you give people an experience in their head. I always say that. The final paragraph, another thing I'm into is manga, especially One Piece. One Piece is a popular manga in Japan. When a new book comes out, I always buy it. I want to make movies about my favorite manga stories, so I'm studying computer graphics now. I'm also in an art circle in university. A few of us are creating a manga about a battle between wizards. I cannot wait to finish it. I could write a comment there. This is how I do it. I select battle between wizards, include an interesting detail to make the reader want to know more. Okay, so how do you use this? Well, the idea is that instead of giving individual feedback to each of the students, you give them this, you let them read it and you let them discuss it, and then you show them their original writing and you can put them in groups or whatever. They should be able to spot similar errors. If you designed this well, then you read through the essays, you saw what kind of errors are there, you designed them into your original piece of writing. You can have them peer correct each other's work. In this way, they're actually paying more attention. They're looking for things. They're discovering things. I think they learn more. You know, you might not end up with as polished a finished product as would happen if you actually corrected for them. But if you actually did the corrections for them, is that really useful for them from a pedagogical point of view? So that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.